He says that men should bang bitches and bitches should be virgins.
No. Both need to have that as a virtue. And that's the propaganda that's everywhere. The glorification is of Susan the housewife. The reason men have such a revolting factor when it comes to high body count, very promiscuous women, is because that's how we assured paternity through chastity. If men are promiscuous, it actually does less harm to society than if women are.
Basically disabuse both sexes of this fantasy,
Yeah.
this delusion. Disabuse men of this fantasy, even though we agree it's immoral, this fantasy of bagging a bunch of broads, like, look, that's not likely. Also, here's why it's not good long-term.
Yeah.
And disabuse women of the notion, hey, this idea that you're going to get white knight, Prince Charming, multi-millionaire, 6'3" six-pack is also not realistic.
Andrew Wilson and Steven Crowder discuss the best strategy to save America. But how do you actually re-engineer a culture that has been conditioned to hate virtue? Let's take a look.
Let me ask you, so the solutions.
Yeah, solution.
Are the solutions, okay, as a society, we need to determine what is exemplary, and that is not, right now, the course is go to college, be independent from a man because you don't want to be trapped, become a working professional, establish yourself, right? So I'm assuming that the solution is the opposite of that. And then what would be the solution to the next one of...
So you start with propaganda. We've been kind of led to believe that bottom-up propaganda is the way, that it needs to be organic. No, it doesn't. You need top-down propaganda like you had in World War II. The same way you got women in the factories with Rosie the Riveter is the same way you get them in the household with, like, you know, Susan the housewife, right? And that's the propaganda that's everywhere. The glorification is of Susan the housewife, you know what I mean? Who has the little, like, thing of cookies, and she's always smiling, and she's always super happy, and her husband's always, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you make that the trend everywhere, and you force it down everybody's throat all day long, every day, where it becomes practically ingratiated in them. That's what you elevate in society. You don't even have to outlaw anything. It's not even necessary. Like, you don't even have to be like, well, you can't, you know, do X behavior. If you had a glorification program top down, just like you do for government propaganda and warfare, it would work beautifully. You don't even need to tell women they can't go to college. You just make the propaganda all about the family unit. And that's the thing the government's supporting. That's the thing we're pushing for as a society. That's the patriotic thing to do.
So basically, exactly how society was before 1960.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they need a good maybe a better mascot like Smokey the Mama Bear. Only you can prevent burnt casserole, some shit like that. You know, we'll work on it.
Yeah, sure.
We'll sort of we'll whiteboard it. And the second issue of women who, you know, find themselves in a position where, okay, I've slept with this very attractive, very wealthy guy, and so they're under this delusion that that's their marriage material and it ruins other men. How do you solve that issue? Do we kill all the rich, attractive men?
This is the more controversial take. The first one's much more easy to demonstrate and prove because we have 200 years of propaganda from the top down, which shows Philip Morris can definitely get the country to smoke, okay?
Yes.
We can definitely prove that propaganda works.
And he was
the second, well, it wasn't even Philip Morris. It was the ad guy. But he did that for multiple things.
In my mind, he's Jim Carrey, so that's the best of my knowledge. But by the way, people will say that that's offensive. And comment below why you think that what he just said is outlandish and offensive, because it is easily verifiable. That is what we did as a society, and not just American society, European society. You can go back to, for crying out loud, medieval society. Up
and
until
when everybody smoked, nobody was fat. I just pointed out when everybody smoked, nobody was fat because it was an appetite suppressant.
Yes.
And by the way, you know, most people who smoke never get lung cancer. 90% plus don't get lung cancer. And they have heart attacks because they're fat.
Thank God we're on Rumble and not on YouTube, because that would be fighting weird. Like, you advocated tobacco use. Correct. It also makes you look really cool.
It does. So anyway, it was a way better society when everybody smoked, trust me. It was way better. It was appetite suppressant. It was a great way to greet your friends. It was fantastic. It all up. But anyway, the point is, back to this though, the second can only be belayed with Christian ethics. So the idea of part of this propaganda that you would want to put out is the idea of virtues for women. And you could teach virtues for women inside of classrooms, right? Just like we used to teach virtues for women, same way we used to teach virtues for men. Here's male virtue, right? Here's what men are expected in society. Here's what you're expected to do. Here's what you're expected not to do. Well, one big key of female virtue is what? Chastity. It's chastity.
Yeah.
So if you're reinforcing chastity, You never get put in the position where you're sleeping with a good-looking guy pre-marriage, right? So you're ruined, right? But you have to start that young. That's a way harder thing to get into the mainstream, the idea of virtues, what are feminine and what are masculine virtues being pushed at a young age. That's what the entire movement was about, was the abolishment of virtues, masculine and feminine virtues, to blend them into the idea that all of these virtues are simply universalized. None of them are specific to the sexes. But here's why they have to be specific to the sexes. Because if men are promiscuous, it actually does less harm to society than if women are. I know that seems like unfair, right? But it's true. It actually does less damage.
Also, I mean, you're advocating for promiscuity.
No, the opposite.
No, I always want to make that clear.
Yeah, men should
he says that men should bang bitches and bitches should be virgins.
No. Both need to have that as a virtue, right? But if women aren't chaste, it creates significantly higher problems than if men aren't chaste.
Well, there's not the problem of paternity.
Yeah, or reproduction, or the problem of the revolting factor. So the reason men have such a revolting factor when it comes to high body count, very promiscuous women, is because that's how we assured paternity through chastity. So paternity tests are a modern invention. I don't know if people remember this or not. Yeah. So how did you know if the kid that the woman was having was yours? Well, it's because she was only fucking you, right?
Right.
That's the only way you could assure paternity. So if you want to know why men get revolted by high body count women, it's actually ingrained inside of men. That's how we assured our prodigy and paternity.
Can I ask you a question, though? And this is one thing, because I agree with everything that you just said. How much level of pushback, though? For example, we showed your clip. Nick DiPaolo was on the show. And Nick DiPaolo's been married for a very long time. People see him as this. He's one of the roughest comedians ever lived. He's also a Family Guy. I don't know if he'll get mad at me because I'm destroying his rep. He's pretty boring. Like, he's not a guy on the road snorting off a lady's hip bones. He's a guy who go back, watches ESPN, calls his lady. But he said, I don't think a lot of guys. He's like, when I was young, I don't think a lot of guys want that. They're not thinking about a woman having, because like they want to bang as many broads as possible. There's a huge contingency of guys out there who are outside of sort of this quote unquote red pill sphere. How much pushback do you think what percentage of men do you think would be on board with what you're proposing?
Well, here's the flaw in his argument. He's right? That, of course, most men would prefer to sleep with as many women. Oh, I'm shocked. Yeah.
Is there a study for this?
Yeah, they want to go nail a bunch of child, you know? But here's the counter argument. It's really simple. Most can't. And that's it. That's all you need to know,
that's sad
right?
For them.
So ultimately, most men can't do that. So if you think that most men wouldn't prefer to settle down with a woman and have kids, right? They would, because most of them are simply not capable of bagging tons of chicks. They're not even capable of doing it. But most women are capable of bagging basically as many men as they want.
So
right?
basically disabuse both sexes of this fantasy,
yeah.
this delusion. Disabuse men of this fantasy, even though we agree it's immoral, this fantasy of bagging a bunch of broads. Like, look, that's not likely. Also, here's why it's not good long term.
Yeah.
And disabuse women of the notion, hey, this idea that you're going to get white knight, Prince Charming, multi-millionaire, 6'3" six-pack is also not realistic.
But here's the thing. It's like, do you remember Dare? That stupid-ass program in the 90s, Dare to keep kids off drugs. Did you ever see that?
Oh, I still have never fried an egg.
Yeah. Well, this is your brain, this is your brain on drug. Don't tell me that shit wasn't effective at keeping kids off drugs. It was.
Yeah.
It was. They definitely remembered, right?
Yeah.
Remember, because the girl was cute, it was Rachel Lee Cook.
How is that not propaganda? That was 100% propaganda, right? And now half of it wasn't even true, right? It's like, you're going to smoke, you're going to be snorting. Right? It's like, no, that really wasn't true. You're going to drink a beer and then you're going to. But the idea,
true for me, but not for
the idea for the propaganda, though, that worked was that, a lot of people were like, they had an aversion to drug use. But what it did was it created a culture where people who did it were considered nefarious. They were considered like, you need to be away from me. You're part of like a more nefarious crowd, a bad crowd, right? Yeah. And you need to be over there. Well, that's what reinforcement of virtue really is. Yep. It's saying this idea of these activities are nefarious and you need to kind of keep it away from me. It needs to be, and the same thing would happen with the pushing or promotion of chastity. It would be the same exact thing. Oh, you guys are out there having a bunch of promiscuous sex. That's as nefarious to us as your massive drug abuse, right?
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. And it's like, you can't tell me it doesn't work because, man, all I've ever seen is these programs work.
Yeah.
To huge success.
But just for people who take umbrage with the term propaganda, there's always propaganda. So if you think that the two mommies, with the girl joining the army is not propaganda, then you're only fooling yourself. Right now, the propaganda has been that women can have it all, that you have all these choices available and they don't lead to different outcomes as far as the timing. It's just not true. So if we're going to have propaganda, and you will, no matter what, I could also just sort of describe it as having an example, having an ideal, then what's best for society.
Well, I was going to say, this goes back to kind of the Christianity. We flipped these things, and I think they realize that they have to go after that duty that we identified, like having children. And the Barbie movie, the very beginning of it was them smashing their baby dolls and going into the workforce essentially and like saying, I'm going to run away from that. So it's that underpinning where it's like, you don't value that anymore. You value a career. And so all of these choices that you get to make now, don't worry about getting a husband, don't worry about doing this. All of these choices now lead to that. The problem that I think we have is, how do we convince women? And look, I use the same argument for that is not where life is found according to Scripture. That is not where happiness is found in Scripture.
You don't need to convince women.
No, I'm just saying.
The opposite.
Well, I think they're finding out the reality of it now, but pop culture still tells you, go and shake what you have and get what you can. Go and be on OnlyFans. Go and do all of these things. Like, pop culture may take a while to catch up, essentially, to what we're seeing in culture, but we've got to make some big structural changes.
To convince women. Women are going to go, so women are the most easily indoctrinated, most easily propagandized out of the sexes, okay? Every single study you look at will tell you this. They're the most easily influenced, right? That's why all the marketing and is towards women, because they buy shit that is insane.
That's because of the pink tax.
Yeah, exactly. It's the pink tax. Yeah. So the thing is,
buy a black razor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea here, essentially, is, I mean, he's right? Pink razors, you charge a premium for, because women will buy it. Why? Because it's pink, right? It's sparkly.
It's got a glide strip.
But what it really is Susan down the road has one.
Yeah.
Okay, and if Susan has it, she's pretty awesome. The other girls like what Susan's doing, so I'm going to do the same thing. They're the easiest when it comes to propaganda. Men, much, much harder. And here's what we have to deal with. Leftist men, they are the ones who benefit from feminism more than anybody else. The idea for disgusting leftist subhuman men that they can like have with multitudes of women, they love that shit. They think it's great. Like, this is fantastic. Yeah. Just imagine you're a secular person. You have no ethical code whatsoever. You don't have any moral standing whatsoever. And you're like, it's an all-you-can-eat fucking buffet, right?
And we'll tell them it's liberation.
Yeah, it's liberation.
Yes. What Andrew is articulating is, I believe, the only way America survives. Virtue must return as the norm, and it must become the most rewarded behavior in our society. This only happens from the ground up, even if the messaging comes from the top down. Each family is made up of individuals. Each community is made up of families. Each family is made up of individuals. And that scales up to the nation, which is made up of many families and communities. It sounds so simple, but the modern, hyper-individualistic mindset we've been programmed with blinds us to this reality. Think about how rights are framed today. They have become entitlements, divorced from any required duty. You have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And anyone who infringes upon that has the force of the state to contend with. But under Christian ethics, rights are fundamentally based on duty. Because I recognize you as made in the image of God, I operate under an objective moral framework. I have a divine command, a duty, not to murder you. Therefore, you have a right to life. I have a duty not to steal. Therefore, you have a right to property and not be stolen from. The entire framework is based on a primary duty to God, a duty to oneself, and a duty to love one's neighbor. If each person operates that way, it scales into the very foundations of the civilization. For example, that virtue gets put into the businesses they open, the people they hire, what they say to those people, and how they shape their kids, and how those kids continue our nation. This is why a top-down propaganda campaign is exactly the answer. We need mass-scale cultural messaging pushing people back toward virtue, toward family, and toward restructuring their lives around a benevolent, patriarchal framework. This is not an easy feat. It is incredibly difficult to convince people who are comfortable in their own paradigm. that they've been in their whole life, that they have been lied to and led astray by the people they trusted most. You have to tell them that almost everything the modern secular world told them is an inversion of truth or something just made up. Motherhood is not slavery. Fatherhood is not oppression. Masculinity is not toxic, and sleeping around while chasing a corporate career will not bring you salvation, I mean fulfillment. When you actually look at the numbers, the modern feminist narrative collapses under scrutiny. Statistically, the safest place for a woman and her children is in the home of a masculine, religious father. Children raised in single mother homes or deeply dysfunctional homes without clear roles are vastly overrepresented in crime, prison statistics, homelessness, and mental illness. I honestly don't know how long we have to watch our population be decimated by deaths of despair before we realize that the system is broken, not the people. You cannot SSRI your way out of a spiritual problem that is entrenched in the very culture. You have a choice. You can continue being part of the problem, banging your way through life, literally and figuratively, or you can start being part of the solution. Pick up your cross, carry the heavy burden, have a duty to the civilization that you live in, to the people around you. It might take 50 years to shift the tides of this culture, but it starts with each heart changed. It starts with men taking up the banner of truth and integrity. And at the risk of sounding cheesy, I'm just going to say it. We need men of virtue. I firmly believe that if men change, women will follow. What other choice will they have as their own ideologies are swallowing them whole? They're not even reproducing. It may take half a century, but the truth always outlasts the lie. Share the video, like and subscribe for more, and stay unchained.